Hello and welcome to Miss Charlotte Astrology. My name is Charlotte. I'm a full-time working astrologer, and on this channel I analyze the astrological charts of public figures, and very often they are celebrities or they're royals. So lately I've been doing a lot of in memoriams, but today I'll be looking at the astrological chart of a man who was on the precipice of mega stardom, and then he screwed it up, and his house of cards came tumbling down. And that is the very tall, the very gorgeous, and the very messy Virgo, Armie Hammer. So, just in case you don't know, Armie was a big time actor. He was like up there. He was getting it. Like he was on his way to being like a DiCaprio or like a Depp, or like, you know what I mean? Like he was on his way. And then in 2020, some women came out and said that he had hurt them. That's me being really, really polite. Like he had hurt them under the guise of BDSM, and it looked fishy because he made them sign contracts and all these things before he entered into these relationships. A lot of these women were very young at the time, like early 20s, and he was obviously in his early to mid 30s, and it looked very sus. However, the judge throughout the case, from what I understand, throughout the case, the lawyer, which was a very famous lawyer, she abandoned her one of the main clients, and so nothing was charged against him. I guess he's found not guilty, right? Like, so he's now doing his apology tour. He did this fascinating interview with Piers Morgan. I'm not a fan of Piers Morgan. I don't think he's the most ethical journalist. Go look him up. But his interview with Armie Hammer was really well done. It goes for about an hour and a half, and he did really well. Armie, there was a period where he like choked up and cried, and I felt bad for him. But yeah, I wanted to have a look at his chart because there's so many women in my DMs. They're like, Charlotte, do you think he did it? Do you think? And I'm like, yeah, I think he did some. I don't know. At the time, I kind of believed it. I wanted to wait and see how it developed. And it's been a few years now, and I've seen some documentaries about the Hammer family, and I've watched the interviews with Armie and interviews with his family members, and now I'm pretty confident in understanding this whole dynamic, right? Like there's just a lot of trauma. There's so much trauma to get through. He is not an angel. Can I just put that out there? Even if he is, and it looks like he is, innocent of the heinous things that he has been accused of, he is still a shifty, messy-ass Virgo who cheated on his wife, disrespected his family, and disgraced himself. Like he's still that. He or was. But yeah, this whole situation is not black and white. It is shades of gray. So let's look at this chart in Placidus form and look at the shades of gray. Let's look at this is so difficult. I want to do this well. This is my 4th time filming this, and I'm like, ugh. Okay. Before I do, I want you guys to know I have MP3 readings available. Is the best way to support me. They're 15 minutes long and they're emailed to you. I also do DM readings on Instagram, so follow me on there. I'll be traveling really soon. I'll be traveling Japan, and so I don't have 60-minute readings anymore. They're discontinued for the moment. But if you really want a reading, MP3s, DM readings, and I'm also, hopefully by the time this comes out, I will be approved of having YouTube members. It's just one tier at the moment where I can share my travels with you, and I want it to be a bit of a learning platform as well, so that you learn, I learn all about astrology, and it'll be so much fun, and we can chat on there. Okay, now let's dive in to Armie Hammer's chart. So as you can see, he is a Virgo sun down here, and that sun is in a conjunction with the IC, and then he's got a Gemini moon and a Gemini rising. And he has a Mars in Cap, and he's got a Venus in Libra right there, and his Mercury is in Leo. So those are his placements, and he's got midheaven in Pisces with Jupiter, and the Jupiter is retrograde, so you know he's a disappointing husband. So yeah, those are his placements. Now, I want to focus. I'm gonna focus on the most traumatic placement because that's the most fascinating placement for me. He has a moon in Gemini in a conjunction with Lilith and Chiron. The moon represents your emotional processing. It's who you are in private, right? The moon is an intimate planet. And I can read it as a first house moon. I can do that because he is a Gemini rising, but can we for now at the moment see this as a 12th house moon? Because that's kind of that's what it is, right? So the moon in the 12th house is associated with an unhappy mother or an enslaved mother, or even could be a lineage of women that are unhappy, crazy, insane, or imprisoned. So I can already see that his relationship with women is complicated just by that specific placement. Now, if we include its conjunction with Lilith is the dark feminine goddess of abortion and divorce, like that rebellious, vindictive, crazy woman energy, that's with his moon. So I think he may have been exposed to women who were abused or abusive, or maybe even both those things. But, you know, your moon is like it's your emotional anchor, and it's anchored in the 12th house of no boundaries, of insanity, right? And it looks to me that he has a very, very difficult, complicated relationship with women. And this plays out in that 12th house of secret affairs, secret enemies and affairs. And did not his affairs, his romantic sexual affairs, did those women not turn into enemies at some point? Yes, they did. He pissed off some bitches, you know. And then he also has Chiron here. So there is a rejection by the family. So he feels rejected by the family or rejected by his mother. There's also a mother that is in pain as well, like another conjunction that indicates a mother that is in pain. So women in his family did not have a nice time. If you watch the documentary, I think it's called House of Hammer, with his aunt, you can see that there is you can see it. They talk about it. There is a lineage, a long line of just abused women in that family. The Hammer women, either marrying into it or being born into it, they have a really tough time. It's a bit of a boys' club, that family. So yeah, this Moon Lilith Chiron conjunction, it's difficult. It's really difficult, and because the Moon is emotions and it's in the 12th house. His emotional outlet is through secretive behaviors, through deceptive, secretive behaviors. That explains why he is prone to addiction, turning to his vices in order to process trauma. It's a really hard placement. It's really, really difficult. It looks like he hates women. Or at least in his fantasies, because the 12th house is fantasies, he wants to create situations where he is harming women. I'm not surprised. And I don't want to kink shame. I don't want to kink shame people, but what you like in bed says a lot about who you are as a human being. Like, it does. And maybe that is connected to his trauma as a child. And we're going to get to his Mars placement. But he must have felt powerless as a child. Even though he grew up with immense wealth, he grew up in some kind of emotional poverty where he felt out of control. And the only way he feels like he can have control is in this 12th house of forbidden fantasy relationships. In these secret affairs, he feels like he has power. He feels like he has control. So it's a bit ugly. Yeah. And in the interview with with Piers, he talks about a disconnection with his body, which Piers didn't really understand. He's like, how can you be so tall and handsome and not want to be in your body? Well, if the moon, which governs the body, it's one of the planets that governs the body, is in the 12th house of delusion and crazy and fantasies, you can see why that would be so. Also, his ascendant is in Gemini, and Chiron, I mean, technically it's in a conjunction. I count it. His ascendant is at 29 degrees. His Chiron is 20 degrees as a 9-degree orb. I'm going to count it as a conjunction. He's going to have an insecurity around his physical body because, again, like the moon and the ascendant govern the body. And he's got the wound right there. So that makes so much sense. Heavy, heavy, heavy. Heavy. Now, I want to talk about his Mars placement. Mars, when it's with Neptune, I know they're not in a conjunction, but they are occupying the same sign and they are in the 7th, 8th house. And those are relationship houses. He lacks boundaries in his sex life. This is what I often refer to as, what is it? The hooker Mars, right? Mars in Pisces, Mars with Neptune is a hooker Mars. Or it's sex with no boundaries. It's sex with no rules, right? And I know the Mars is in a great sign. His Mars in Capricorn makes him a very hard worker. It can make him very organized, even with his sexual impulsivity, his sexual impulsivities. He was still very organized. He was organized enough to make sure that they signed a contract before he got in their pants. Mars does trine his Virgo placements, right? So he does have trouble with sexual impulsivity, but he's smart enough to know that he has to keep his side of the street clean. Now, the Mars with Neptune, Neptune, not in a conjunction, but they are together, does speak to him being abused as a child. In the Piers Morgan interview, he talks about how he was by his priest or his pastor, like some holy religious person, a person that he should have wholeheartedly trusted, abused him. That has obviously sexually traumatized him. That has played a part in his relationships with women. So obviously there is an insecurity about his masculinity, his sexual prowess. There is trouble there. There is trouble there. And here's the thing: Mars and Neptune are malefics, right? Neptune is the planet of loss and sacrifice, and Mars is the planet of war. Neptune's also, because it governs that 12th house we talked about, right? That's secret enemies. Are you surprised that his lovers turn to enemies when he has these two planets in this house? And if we don't read it as 7th house and we decide to read it as 8th house because he has Capricorn on his 8th house cusp, that Mars in the 8th house is, I think Ariana Grande is associated with the abuse of sex, having your sexuality used against you, right? Someone using sex as leverage against you, or blackmail, or it's not an easy placement. I'm not saying every single person with Mars in the 8th house is going to experience that specific kind of sexual trauma, but I'm not surprised with Mars playing into his 8th house that happened. Along with Neptune, he's got all sorts of hang-ups because of that abuse as a child, and it has interfered with his social life. It has hurt his ability to have real connections with women. So not surprised. Now this Mars in Capricorn is squaring off with his Venus. And his Venus, it's a good Venus, you know. He's got a good Mars and a good Venus. They're just not getting along here. Venus in Libra wants romance as much as it wants a practical, loving relationship. So his Venus in Libra wants to have that wholesome union, right? But it doesn't get along with his Mars. Mars and Venus, they're not aligning. His sexual needs, his sexual impulsivity, his anger, however he expresses anger, if he is impulsive or irresponsible with his expression of sexuality and anger, it's going to ruin his relationships, because Venus is a social planet. It's the heart. It's not just your romantic relationships, it's also your business and platonic relationships. Now, because of his sexual impulsivity, when he's too hardcore in that Mars placement and he's doing all this messy shit with women, it's going to break his heart. It's going to ruin those connections. When you have a Mars-Venus square, your dick and your heart do not align. They do not get along. That's why you got to be very careful of how you conduct yourself, because you can disgrace yourself and lose everything and everyone. And he did. Oh boy, such a messy chart. Another thing, he has his 7th house in Sagittarius, and he has Saturn, and he's got Uranus in Sagittarius, so more malefics that play into that 7th house. If you have Uranus on your descendant, you can have a bit of a, what do you call it? It's like what's the word? People are in and out of your life. It's a bit of a merry-go-round of people. It's a revolving door of people. I know Uranus is in his 6th house, but because he has Sagittarius on his descendant, he's got a lot of people in and out of his life. It can also complicate romantic relationships having that. Like there would have been a lot of women. Watch the Piers Morgan interview with Armie. A lot of women. He's like, there was a lot. It was a revolving door of women. He was not treating them well. This is not a warm placement. However, he's got Saturn here too. And again, I know it's in the 6th house, but it does play into that 7th house, as that's where Sagittarius lies. He wants to have marriage. He wants to have a serious relationship, but he's got a lot of karma around that. It does show divorce. Saturn in the 7th house, Saturn on the descendant, Saturn in the same sign as the 7th house is a bit of a divorce placement. I'm not saying that every single person with that placement is going to get divorced, but I wouldn't be surprised if it does happen with that placement. Also, he's got Juno. Juno is the asteroid of marriage. Being married is, even though he wants it, it's also it chokes the life out of him. Being married is like it's a bit of a prison, right? So what he wants, when he gets it, he doesn't want it anymore. And then on top of that, who's Juno married to? Jupiter. Jupiter in retrograde. He's a disappointing husband. Jupiter's in a squared off sign to Juno. They're not married in the chart. This guy should not be married, because I think he's just got too many temptations. He's got too many. He just needs to be single. He needs to be single, and he needs to keep it away from his kids. I would not advise him to ever get married again. Not with this chart. He needs to be free, and he needs to get it out of his system, honestly. This is the thing with him, though. He is a 4th house. He's a 4th houser, you know. He's got Virgo on his IC, marks out the 4th house of the home. And wherever the sun lies is where you have pride and joy, right? Because the sun shines. Wherever you have the sun is where you find your identity. It's how you see yourself, right? Now, he's very proud of having been married with children. I know that it chokes him, you know, I know it feels like a prison, but he also derives a lot of joy being that responsible Virgo guy that has a family and you know, 2.5 kids and a nice house with a picket fence around it. That's a family man. The problem is that the very thing that he derives a lot of pride and joy, this abundance, his kids love him, and he's got part of fortune here. All of this doesn't make him happy. The thing that he derives pride and joy from doesn't make him happy, which speaks to this squared off Gemini stuff in the 12th house. That's, again, I know it's not showing you a square. There's no red line here, but his moon and his sun are in squared off signs. That's the contradiction. He derives pride and joy from his family, but he has trouble with emotional regulation and connection, even connection with himself. It's almost like the way he connects is through these fantasies with these psychotic, unstable women. If we're gonna believe him, that's how I'm gonna put it. Like he got freaky with some freaks, and then he treated them badly, and they wanted revenge. If we're gonna believe that he's innocent, that's what happened. He was cruel, he was mean, he was neglectful. He cheated on his whole family, not just his wife, his 2 children. And yeah, he got in trouble for it. And all the women involved, they got vengeful. I mean, I'm not saying it's right. But what I am saying is I understand. Yeah. So absolutely not surprised that he got in trouble. He just needs to be single, which is hard because he's a Venus in Libra. He wants to have that perfect loving partner, but he got her and then he destroyed it. He destroyed his relationship. And his south node is here. His north node is at 22 degrees in Aries. So with his south node on the Venus, I'm not surprised he got married quite young or was in relationships quite young. I think he considers himself a relationship guy. But that north node is about coming clean, even if it hurts. Virgos with a north node, you guys that have heavy Virgo placements and a north node in Aries do not have an easy time with this placement. This is very uncomfortable because it means you got to tell an unflattering truth. Aries is about truth. Aries is also about going to war, which he's definitely doing, but it's also telling an unflattering truth, and it's at 22 degrees, which is the kill or be killed degree. So yeah, telling the truth even at your own detriment. But in doing that, I think he can connect with that 11th house and become popular again. And he is on his apology tour. His nodal return has another 6 months. It's going to enter his 10th house, his midheaven sign of Pisces very soon. I feel like he's going to be working again. Saturn is moving through here, which is it's helping him reestablish his reputation. He's coming clean. He's telling the truth, and it's incredibly painful. The South Node is about to go through his Virgo placement. Certainly with the South Node, his nodal return, his South Node has returned as well. It's about releasing those relationships. I think he's let go of a lot of people, and he doesn't have a lot of friends right now. And I think that will continue as the South Node moves through Virgo, and he's got to release his sun. He's got to release his ego. This is all he's going to be lonely for a little while longer. He's not going to get back the glory of his youth. He's not going to get that back. I think he's better off being a character actor, and he'll slowly but surely, he'll get his career back. He will. People are going to look at him differently now. And they should, because he's behaved very badly and he's treated people very poorly. Very poorly. And even if he is innocent or he didn't hurt these women in the way they described, he still didn't treat them very well. He did he did this to the wrong bitches. He really, really did, because these women, they wanted revenge and they got it. Assuming that he's innocent. Right? But yeah, the South Node going through the Virgo placements will not be easy, but the North Node going through his midheaven with Jupiter, I think we're gonna see him again soon. Maybe some television, maybe a couple of movies, him in the background, whatever. He'll figure it out. He will figure it out. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good thing his North Node is actually supported. It looks unsupported, but it does well with that Gemini, with the Gemini stellium in the 12th, and then it does well with his Uranus here. So I think he will get some of that popularity back. He just he needs to tell the truth, and he needs to stop being a sneaky little 12th house bitch. That's all. Okay? Armie, do better, sir. Do better. Anyway, that's all I have to say. If you like that, if you'd like to support me, you can purchase an MP3 reading, or you can do a DM reading with me on Instagram, or I'm about to have my YouTube members, so if you'd like to join that, you can talk to me on there. It'll be hella fun. And yeah, I appreciate all your support, and thank you so much. And those of you that are in Tokyo, Osaka, or Kyoto, hit me up on Instagram or email me, because we might do a little meetup. Okay? So thank you so much, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.